Mhm.
Okay, so would you mind
Updating.
stating the context of this?
Well, we're working with the city of San Jose and Google on their Google West development, which is 81 acres.
Which is their new headquarters
Headquarters in San
planned
Jose.
for San Jose.
And then
West
there's
San Jose.
also another document that's called the Downtown Station Area Plan, and that's another 81 acres outside of the Google 81 acres.
And that was established years ago. That was
Right,
for a whole other project.
right. That's true. It started originally.
It doesn't matter. Just stating
Right,
the
it was a
context.
baseball field. Now we have, we're trying.
And Google shows up and they
Right.
want to create a new campus, and so they're just going to use the larger area plan that the city came up with and drop their new campus right in the
Well,
center
also
of it.
there's the issues of BART and there's issues of
No, there
high-speed
isn't.
rail.
No, there's
No,
not.
these are all
Don't want
this
to
is
talk about that.
what's called the Downtown
However,
Station
we have an
Area
SA
Plan.
However, you see, you're off track.
Okay,
We have an SAP
Right.
center.
right.
Used to be the HP Pavilion. So these are named
Sports.
naming rights
Sports.
sports coliseums, right? And I don't know
The
what all they use
well,
it
the
for.
problem is.
But no, there's no
yeah,
problem.
Okay.
Statement of situation. So right now we have an NHL team, National Hockey League team called the Sharks, and they play their games at the SAP Center. And they have big crowds that show up. People sometimes take the train, the Diridon station, which is kind of our central city urban, transit hub, light rail, Caltrain, bus routes, everything goes to Diridon. So there's a lot of people that actually walk to, take the train, whatever, and walk to the stadium. But they do have a very large parking lot. And at some point during Google hoovering up all of the real estate around the transit center for their new village, they hoovered up the parking lot. And I saw that in a map.
Lots plural, even.
Yeah, I saw that, and I thought, this is kind of strange. It looks like the city has given, because the SAP Center, of course, is owned by the city. The naming rights would defer to whatever corporation is willing to buy them. So the city gave the parking lot, or sold the parking lot, to the Google Village developers. I thought, that's kind of odd, because that parking lot's pretty full during the games for the Sharks, for the NHL. And there's long lines of cars going into the parking lots, and they have to pay a fee for that. It's like, it's a big revenue stream, I'm sure. And yet there it was outlined as part of the sale of city land to Google. And I've been kind of wondering, so what are they going to do? Are they going to put the parking underground? Are they going to, build buildings on top of a parking lot, parking structure? What are they talking about doing? Well, now it turns out, lo and behold, it's exactly what it looked like. They're giving the parking lot to the Google developments. And so just recently, yesterday or today, the team, the NHL, now that things have heated up and there's late in the game negotiations now on what the city's going to do for Google, what Google's going to do for the city, what the city and the Google together are going to do for the surrounding communities in terms of impacts and mitigations. Now, the National Hockey League is stepping up and saying, hold on, wait a second. You took our parking lot away.
Right.
How can we have games with, ticket sales and season tickets and people who come to watch, spectators, if we don't have a parking lot?
Right.
Well.
Right. And the critical issue.
And I was asked to wait. No, there is no critical issue.
Okay.
I was asked. That's just a statement of the scenario. Okay. And everyone understands the issue. So it's one corporation against another, with the city stuck in the middle, which is how this is going to play out.
Can I just read this one thing, which is important? The Sharks agreement with San Jose requires the city to ensure. So that's where 4,850 parking spaces are available within 1/3 of a mile of SAP Center.
Well, 1/3 of a mile is a long way.
Google struck a deal to buy from the city. Okay, that was it. So, so.
And I don't see how in the world that's going to happen, that they're going to give an entire parking lot away to Google. But that was in that map.
Well,
that
Google
they got that
struck a deal to buy from the.
So apparently the city decided that the sale of the land was lucrative enough that they were going to take any problems with the team
Right.
Now, one of the things that happens, of course, is the team moved. They moved to another city.
Oh,
And,
okay, good.
in the exchange, you have to think that the city and its lawyers and budget meisters sat back and said, okay, so we're going to lose the NHL team and all of the people from Gilroy and around who want to come up and buy T-shirts and things, or we're going to get the Google campus. And it's a silly question. Of course, you're going to take the Google campus, right? That's a $1 trillion company. And the NHL is nothing. They're bupkis. So
and they come once a year. It's not a all the time thing.
Yeah, and
you
and besides, the city really wants, and the county really wants to encourage people to use mass transit to everything, right? The idea that you're going to drive your car into San Jose to go to a Sharks game once a month when there's a Google campus all around it with employees who are also getting off work at the same time that the game starts is just ridiculous. I mean, the place is already going to be a parking lot. So they probably decided in the bargain, well, we lose the NHL team and we also lose all those stupid people driving into San Jose just to watch a sports game, okay? And so this is where the intersection with reality comes in. And the reality in this case is our response to global heating and the resulting climate change. And first of all, we don't allow into our discussion of, I'm kind of choked up. Yeah, because I was out there.
Yeah, with the leaves.
Dealing with the leaves, and I got all choked up.
Vacuuming leaves, not blowing. Thank you.
Vacuuming and mulching leaves.
Yeah.
Still creates a lot of dust. So we need to get out of cars.
Thank you.
Period. And the reason they located the Google campus where they did is because it's near the transit center, the Diridon Transit Center. So it really encourages employees to take transit, and they can just walk to work from the transit center. That was the other reason to put the SAP Center nearby there. And they were also planning at one time to put a baseball stadium not too far from there. So that was the idea all along, is that people are going to be encouraged to take transit to get to these venues. And Google came along and had the same idea. So this idea that the SAP Center needs a 5,000 spot parking lot is frankly disingenuous. No, that's not the point of this. Is 2,000 cars showing up for a game and choking the roads and running over people and causing fatalities and congestion.
Up to 5,000 almost, right? Right.
And it's a very old part of town. It's a very old part of the South Bay and the Bay Area in general. This transit center and these roads, the Santa Clara is the King's Highway,
right,
El Camino Real.
It is.
This is the highway that they put down when they're building the missions here.
Right.
These roads are not straight, they're not wide. There's all kinds of pedestrian crossings. This is not a place for cars. It just is not. They put freeways in, but even the freeways are not all that nearby. And then when you get off a freeway, you're right into street traffic, and it's one lane this way and one lane that way. And what are you going to do?
People dying on the roads.
And people using the crosswalks who took transit, now they're using the crosswalks. You got hundreds of people crossing the road at one time. So it's just a clusterfuck, right? And so I think the city in the bargain is saying, look, SAP Center, back in the day, it made sense for us to placate you and have an NHL team here, but now we're running with the big dogs. So you can't have that parking lot in that location because it's just contributing to massive congestion. Either your spectators, your fans, figure out a way to get there that doesn't involve cars, or you can move your team.
And by the way, even being in a closed arena is counter to COVID. So there's a lot of issues of these closed arenas issues.
Yeah, but our leaders have shown a propensity to roll over real quick.
I know.
When anybody comes along and says, "Hey, we're making money here,"
Right. So that's the question.
There are no restrictions practically on anything.
Yeah, and even recently there was a whole big push from some nonprofit. It was called Public Health Over Profit, and it was trying to get our county supervisors over the Levi Stadium to not allow the Levi Stadium was pushing
another stadium
to stop
taking
down the COVID restrictions.
The city of Santa Clara,
right? And so I don't know why it was the county supervisors, but it was, and
I think that's their project. It was always
no,
their
it's
project.
City of Santa Clara. It's always been City of
It
Santa.
wasn't?
Yeah, City of Santa Clara.
I always heard it.
So I don't
the-
know. It was something to
the
do
county
with they
supervisors weighing
wanted
in all
them
the
to, say public health over profit, and that's what's happening right now. We're in lockdown again. So this is what's
No, we're
happening.
not.
Almost.
Oh, everything's voluntary.
okay.
Don't kid
Voluntary
yourself.
lockdown. Okay, we're not in lockdown.
Recommendations.
Right, we're not in
Strongly
lockdown.
worded
Right, we're not in
recommendations.
lockdown, but
No.
we're in more strongly. The strongest
It's
it's
even
been.
the most strongly worded recommendation. Yeah.
Yeah, even
whatever.
CDC is
Doesn't matter.
coming in, and so
All voluntary. So
right,
there's no lockdown.
right. So what it is it's a corollary to the.
Why are we
sports-
talking about coronavirus?
Well, because the sports arenas having so much power over our politicians. That's the it could boil
okay,
down to
well,
that.
they have a lot of power over your politicians
Because of
until
money.
$1 trillion company shows up and
Well,
wants
So
a parking lot,
what
right?
do we do? Well, what do we
Okay,
do?
so I am a one issue person.
Right, climate change.
I don't care about sports. They're just a bunch of roided up jocks throwing balls and things at each other. I mean, it's gay, all right, in their tight pants and whatever, and I don't care about it. It's silly. It's childish. It's fantasies, and the only thing I care about is that we're destroying the planet around us.
Thank you.
So we have to get out of cars. We have to de-emphasize all car everything.
Right.
And even having the Google campus come to our city, if they start putting in parking lots on their campus and encouraging people to drive, then we've completely gone the wrong direction,
That's
right?
right. That's right.
And we're going to give this parking lot,
Away from SAP and then give it to Google.
and then,
no,
and then we're going to invite them with their 40,000 cars
No.
a day.
with the Google. Yeah.
So this is okay. None of this is going forward. Okay, the fact that there's a parking lot there and they're giving it to Google to build their offices on, and all of this Sturm and Drang and all this discussion, it's meaningless, because very soon we're going to put a price on carbon for extraction of crude oil and for the mining of coal and the extraction of natural gas. And these things are going to become expensive. They need to become expensive because we need to take the money from the use fee. And that's what it is. Call it a carbon tax if you want. That's just trying to keep things simple for people who understand simple things.
Right.
It's a use fee. And you want to use these fuel resources to zip yourself around getting lattes, that's fine, but you have to pay to play, because we have to clean up your mess after you're done.
Clean up your
This
mess.
is now the discussion in areas of leadership and engineering and the sciences that we have to clean this mess up. Everybody at the top of industry is talking about this. I understand the SAP Center isn't talking about it. I understand that Mayor Sam Liccardo's not talking about it. But these are little fish. Okay, these are people playing way down here in the food chain. When you go higher up the food chain, they're talking about putting a price on carbon, because they know and they are worried about that we are screwed. Okay, and they're wondering who's going to clean this mess up. And they're wondering who's going to pay to clean this mess up. And they're looking at the fossil fuel industry and they're saying, this is your mess, right? We all know that, right? I mean, you can lie to the public, but you can't lie to us. We're the elites. We know, well, we know what's going on. And this is your mess. You're going to clean this mess up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to clean this mess up, right?
Right.
So there's going to be a price on carbon. Not because I said so,
Mhm. Because the higher
not
ups
because
are
the dirty
saying-
hippie said so, but because Goldman Sachs said so.
and that's what's
Okay?
truly what's happening.
That's exactly what happened.
Exactly what's happening.
The guy from Goldman
they-
Sachs wrote an opinion
Right.
piece and said there's going to have to be a price on carbon.
And they're
Well,
going to get
guess
the
what?
Congress to do
There's
it.
going to be a price on carbon now. Pull the strings as you do,
And we're going to get the guys, you know.
because they want someone to pay for this. Pay for this $100 trillion cleanup, which is about the price tag.
Right.
So getting back to the topic, when that particular hard to swallow horse pill shows up in the price of a gallon of gasoline, the
$40
people from
a gallon.
the people who from Gilroy, the cowboys from Gilroy, who would drive up here in their Ford F-350 diesel trucks to go to the Sharks game, are not going to do that. They're not going to be able to afford to do that, because the price of carbon, the so-called carbon tax, which is really a use fee, pay to
Cleanup fee.
pay to play.
Cleanup fee.
pay to
Cleanup fee.
play. Okay, if you're going to make a mess, you got to clean it up.
Like
That's
a-
just
like
how
a-
this is going to work. All right.
Mhm.
The fee on carbon, because we have to raise $100 trillion over maybe 50 years, it's going to be huge. It's not going to be 10 cents a gallon like you're used to. It's not going to be 50 cents a gallon like you're used to. it's going to be $20 a gallon. It's going to be $40 a gallon.
40.
It's going to be $60 a gallon.
Right.
So how do you want to use your gallon of gas today, if at all, right? Are you going to use it to go buy groceries at the Food Max, or are you going to go to a Sharks game? So that's going to be an easy decision for people, right? Easy decision. And so that parking lot at the SAP Center was already doomed.
Right. So
Furthermore,
mm,
the Google Village, if they're really going to rely on employees driving to work, they're also already doomed.
right.
Because that shoe is going to drop.
That's
The
very
penny is going to
important,
drop.
very important.
That is going to happen.
Right. Very important.
$20,
Thank you.
$40 on a
Thank
gallon
you.
of gas.
Yeah.
I don't know what the actual price is going
Right.
to be. Maybe it'll start
Right.
out 20 cents.
Yeah.
But the point is, it's going to happen
Mm,
because someone's got to pay to clean up this mess. And if you don't think there's a mess, then I don't care what you think or where you go after this. But there is a mess. And there are people at the top of the echelons of power and influence in the planet who recognize this as a mess. And they are talking about someone's going to have to clean this up. And they want it to be the fossil fuel industries to clean this up.
and we got to do it now. And we're going to have to do it very quickly. I was just thinking
We have
about
just a few years to figure
Joe
out how to do
Biden
this
being president.
if we can
Yeah.
even figure it out. And
Right.
that's not a
And
guarantee
we
at all.
have to get that Congress. That's why we have to really work hard to get those Georgian senators to be in charge so that we can make the changes that we need at the congressional level.
Fine. Then fine. But back up.
Okay.
I am not willing to concede that we can make these changes.
Okay. Right. All right. Fine.
I'm
But
talking about just technology,
right.
entropy, physics. I'm not
Right.
sure.
But what I
we can do
appreciate,
this.
I appreciate you saying is that the price on carbon is coming. It's coming down from Goldman Sachs.
It's coming down from the top.
From
It's
the
not-
top.
Not
from the
coming up
power-
from the
power
dirty
brokers.
hippies that say we have to put a price on carbon to save the
Power
world.
brokers.
It's coming from the power brokers at the top
Okay.
who understand what's
And are
going
gonna
on,
get the Congress
who understand
to
how
do the
bad
right
it
thing.
is, and they are going to say someone's going to pay for this.
And yeah.
I'm not going to pay for this. Goldman Sachs isn't paying for this.
Right.
IBM isn't paying for this.
Yeah.
The Republican Party's not
Right.
paying for this. Who's
Right.
going to pay for this? Who's going to be the
And if
fossil
it's
fuel
not,
companies.
this year that we move the Congress blue, it's going to be very soon. We're on to it. Okay, we're on to it. We're getting
It
empowered.
doesn't
And the
matter
thing is,
because the color of Congress, the Senate, and the House of Representatives and the White House doesn't matter, whether it's blue or red. It's the same people at the top who have always been at the top.
but they have to get the Congress
who
to
are constantly
Okay,
who are
pulling the strings.
constantly pulling the
Okay, fine.
strings.
So it's going to
And they've
happen.
been pulling the
Kat's
strings
saying
for
it's
40
going to
years.
happen. It's going to
And with
happen.
increasing frequency and out in the open for the last 10,
All right.
15
So
years.
he's saying it's going to happen. That's what the science is saying. It's going to happen. He's seeing it as he tracks trends. Kat does as a scientist, not only science, but also social, what's going on in the news. And so he's tracking that as well. And he's bringing that to our attention that it's going to go up. The price of carbon is going to go up. It's got to go up. And so when we're building and designing our community, do we kowtow to the SAP Center and say, you promised us 5,000 parking spots within a third of a mile? Maybe we have to build a stupid,
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
What do we do?
Let's even go one step further. So as people, let's just talk about organized sports as a business.
Right.
There were certain things we were able to do in the era of free energy. Certain things we could do when we had infinite energy,
Right. Yeah.
essentially infinite energy for free. And one of those things is we could indulge ourselves in spectacles. Now, it used to be that the only person who could have a spectacle was the king,
Kings and queens.
who would summon all the knights from around the realm, or all the wrestlers, or all the archers, and have a meet.
What was that called in the beautiful Roman? What was it called where they would fight and stuff? That was
the Romans. I'm talking about
Yeah.
much later.
Yeah, but I was
okay?
thinking, what are those? That was called the Colosseum. The true
Colosseum.
Colosseum, the
Fine.
original
It's
Colosseum.
another example of the same thing.
Right.
Okay, the Romans had professional gladiators. Okay, who they paid or they were enslaved or whatever. They were rewarded in different ways to fight each other to the death, or nearly so. And we brought that forward into modern times with all these sports things, spectacles. They're spectacles.
Right.
It's a bunch of grown men hitting each other, breaking each other's bones, gouging each other's eyes
Blood.
over a little ball. Okay, a little ball, a child's toy.
And that's
Come
what
on.
happens with the Sharks. I
Or
mean,
a
really,
puck.
truly.
Or
hockey.
It's a child's
It's
game.
violent. It's violent.
Chase each other on the playground with the ball, right?
Yeah.
Little 8-year-olds.
But the Sharks are really
But
violent.
the spectacle of men, grown men, 200-pound men, muscular, full of testosterone, smashing into each other, is a gladiator sport. So in when we had free energy and infinite amounts of it, seemed for all practical purposes, we could have these spectacles. And I was trying to say something when you interrupted me, which is that the only time we could have these kind of spectacles in the past was when the emperor or the king or the czar told everybody, I want a spectacle. Okay, bring all the knights, bring all the wrestlers, bring all the archers, bring the slaves, bring the whatever, bring the wild animals too, bring the bears and the tigers and the lions and the hyenas, and we'll throw them all in the Coliseum, or we'll throw them all out in the pitch or whatever. Now our spectacles have become more stylized. Okay, now we're grown men chasing a ball, but it's still spectacle. It serves no purpose of any kind. It just has no purpose. It's entertainment, but is there a purpose in that? Well, yeah, because you're bored.
Money.
You're bored.
Money.
You're bored, and you want to be entertained. I mean, that's what every lord and master says. I got everything. I got my huge mansion. I've got my 5 cars in my driveway. I've got all the junk food I can eat. I'm bored.
Entertain me.
Entertain me. I mean, that's what the kings and emperors and czars and all the others would say. I'm bored.
Yeah.
I want a spectacle. Entertain me.
Right.
And and he waves his handkerchief and they all start fighting. Okay, so that spectacle for the common man down here on the food chain, not up here, down here. That kind of spectacle for the common man is only possible when you have infinite amounts of energy. That you can just take all these grown men, put them on airplanes, fly them around the world. That's essentially what happens, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Put them in buses, drive them around the country.
The best cars.
And then, of course, the spectators. They're also driving themselves around to come to these things. Huge parking lots, gigantic stadiums. It's a spectacle. It's grown men chasing a ball. Now, when we had infinite energy and it was practically free, then we could afford, and I don't mean by cost, I mean just the energetic requirement.
Yeah.
We could afford to do this. If the hockey players had to pack up their gear in duffel bags and walk to LA to have a hockey match,
between two of them,
it wouldn't happen.
Right.
If they had to ride horses to LA to have a match, it wouldn't happen.
Right. But they fly.
If they had to, even if they had to take the train to LA, it wouldn't happen. Okay? But they fly. They get in, buses. And they just, sleep all the way down there. They can do it.
And fly.
It takes a lot of energy to do that. It takes a lot of cheap, free energy to create those spectacles everywhere, all over the country, and everywhere, all over the planet. Another example of it is the Olympics. Good Lord! I mean, look at the spectacle. It takes years to put it together. Then it takes weeks to play it out. And all these people come from all over the planet. Huge villages are spring up overnight. It's a spectacle. It's just people chasing balls, essentially.
So getting back to it, that's really great.
So
you can't do that.
The SAP Center and the National Hockey League are trying to make a case for their survival at the end of the world.
Right.
It's over. It's done. You can pretend that you've got some game left here. Got some wiggle room here. Going to figure this out.
They got all their
wheel and deal.
They got their whole mailing list.
It's not happening. It's over.
Contact the city.
That's not going to make any difference. It's not going to make any difference.
Okay.
And even if the city says, "Yeah, okay, fine,
we'll give you back 5,000.
We'll give you back the parking lot." It's fine. That was a bad idea. I don't know what we were thinking. That was oversight. Some staff member screwed up. Okay, we'll give you back your parking lot. Even if they do that, they're still done. They're done. Because soon enough, the price of carbon of all these people driving around and all these teams flying and driving around, the price of that actual thing and the cleanup that's required to clean up that mess every time these people show up in their Ford F-350 diesel pickups, the mess they make in the atmosphere has to be cleaned up by somebody. And right now, the elites at the top are trying to figure out who's going to pay for that. And the way it's going to be paid for, I don't think they can get it out of the treasury. Okay, the way it's going to be paid for is as a use fee and it's going to show up as a use fee in
On
the price
every-
of a gallon of
every person,
gas,
yeah, every
diesel, kerosene, whatever
Like
you.
40 to 80 to $120.
It's going to
gallon.
be big, and it's going to start
needs to
out
be
small,
big.
and it'll raise incrementally, and then one of these ages is going to boom, because it has to boom at some point. It can't be 20 cents and 50 cents and $1. It has to be $20. We got to raise $100 trillion over the next couple of
10
decades
years, they
to
say.
pay for this,
Right.
or we just won't be here.
Mm.
And so the SAP Center and its hockey league, they've got maybe another year or two. My prediction is they're done.
Yeah. So what?
Their economic model
Right.
has already hit the iceberg.
And so when the city has said that they guaranteed 5,000 car spots, do they back off on that?
Okay, once again, I don't care about the politics.
Okay.
I'm not here to talk about the solution to that problem.
Right.
What I'm here to say is that
can't go forward.
even if, and this is the key to all these discussions I have on YouTube, even if the city buckles under to the sports team and says, fine, you can have your parking lot back. Even if they do that,
it won't be used.
It will not have cars in it.
It will not. Right.
Because shortly, in the next few years,
Right.
and that's like the blink of an eye in terms of city economics and the economics of teams. 1 or 2 years is the blink of an eye. Very soon, the price of fuel is going to start to skyrocket. And no one will even know what's happening, because it's just going to happen. There's not going to be a vote. You're not going to get a referendum. You're not going to get anything. It's just going to come from the oil companies forward. And pretty soon it's going to be $20 a gallon to buy a gallon of gas.
40.
Yeah. And at some point, people will give up. They'll just stop doing it. Or they'll buy it, and then they hoard their gasoline for the times when they have to drive to Food Max and Costco, because they live in the
Essential.
suburbs and they are car dependent. And what are they going to use their car for? They're going to use their car for food, clothing. Okay, they're not going to use it to come up here to the SAP Center, watch a bunch of grown men chase a ball. Okay, they're not going to do that. But they'll sit back and they'll watch reruns on YouTube. Okay, they're just not going to buy the ticket. They're not going to come up here. And then they're going to get in their car and they're going to drive very slowly, very carefully, to be very conservative to Costco to get their junk food.
The only thing is that as we are in this point of making decisions about this, do we buckle as a community under the requirements of this SAP Center, saying that you've got to leave us a car-centric city?
Okay, it will be interesting. And I, as a scientist and an engineer, not as a politician, I will sit back and I will watch. And I will see what decision they make. I already know what decision they're going to make.
They're going to
buckle. They'll do something.
Well, now
maybe
the
they'll move
law
all
is
the cars into my
requiring
neighborhood. Okay, they'll have parking up and down here. Maybe they'll demolish some of these businesses along Stockton and turn them into parking lots. I don't know. I don't care. But they're going to keep the cars coming. That's what they're going to do.
The problem.
They're going to keep the cars coming, because that's business as usual.
Right.
And they're not leaders. These people are not leaders.
Right.
Okay, they're not leaders.
Right.
They're followers,
Right.
and they follow the money.
Right. Yeah.
That's what they do. And right now we have two corporations going at each other. We got the NHL, National Hockey League, and Google. Well, okay, guess who's going to win? It's a slam dunk.
Oh,
but
good. Google might win?
Yes. Yeah, they're going to win, because they're $1 trillion company.
Okay, good.
And the National Hockey League is $1 million company.
All right, fine. Hopefully, but anyway, it's just this is where what was interesting to me is that we're having to now buckle under these requirements, is what they want us to do. The SAP Center,
And I'm here to tell you,
that we have to become a car-centric city for them, and that's what's aggravating and annoying.
It's always been car-centric, but here's what's going to happen. Here's the other shoe that's going to drop.
Right.
They have these games in the early evening, like 7 o'clock or so. That's about the same time that the Googlers are going to be getting off work in large numbers. And they'll be going one direction, and the SAP fans will be coming, the hockey fans will be coming from the other direction. And they're going to cross each other up in these intersections, right?
Run each other over.
Yeah, those going to be, and the people who come to these hockey games, they're violent. They're violent people. And they're coming for the violence. Right? Don't kid yourself. They're coming for the spectacle. They're coming to see the gladiators cut each other's guts open, okay? It's essentially what's happening.
Absolutely.
And they come for the violence.
Absolutely.
And they're violent people. And so when they start seeing these pencil neck coders leaving Google in the fucking electric cars, okay, they're just going to be like this. They're just going to brains are going to explode. Who's this guy in front of me with this fag electric car? And he's a skinny little guy. He even looks like he's Indian or he's Asian or something. He's, the violence is going to erupt. And so what's the city going to do? Are they going to hire 400 more police officers and deploy them, every weekend, every other day?
Of these events?
Yeah.
Yes.
Santa Clara and Montgomery, what are they going to do?
Right. Anyway, it's like, how do we get the changes we need now when, these corporations are asking for car centricity is what they're asking for. And everything about our goals is to not do that.
No,
and
that's not anybody's goal.
Well, it is.
That's your goal.
No, it is
that's
part
my
of the city's goal too.
The difference is you want to teach the city how to do it.
Right.
And I am willing to sit back and watch the universe teach the city how to do it.
Okay.
Because they cannot go on like this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
They've hit the iceberg. This Titanic is sinking. They're done.
Well,
they don't even know they're done. They're already done.
We have to look at the fact that we declared a climate emergency. We've got to look at what's happened, what our general plan is requiring of our city, which is to become less car centric, and follow those guidelines. Follow, and we need even stronger climate action.
Definitely go to them and remind them. Just remind them of the religion they're supposed to be part of.
Right, okay? Not the religion of the SAP with their car
or the economics, if you want to writ large, because Google also wants parking and freeway access and ramps.
And they can't give it to them either.
No, they can't give it to them either.
Right, and they have to be strong.
And the reason why they can't is because it's a misallocation of resources. We can use the land for other things if we don't use it for parking lots.
Right, and we can't declare a climate emergency and then go and give them their 5,000 car parking spots. It's just.
Well, no, if you're a politician, you can absolutely do that because declaring a climate emergency was not actionable. It just says, whereas and wherefore there is a climate crisis, we hereby declare that we want to recognize that we have a climate emergency.
Whereas, wherefore, and
it's a one paragraph throwaway piece of mind fuck. Okay, right. It's completely unactionable. There's no actions implied, none of any kind, in saying, "Oh, we have a climate emergency." I mean, if we had a fire emergency, the place would be on fire. We'd know what to do. We'd go put out the fire. We'd get people out of town.
What it is that we really have to.
There was nothing actionable about that declaration.
Environmentalists,
not one thing.
We have to stand up against this. This is going to be the work. Is
okay. As an environmentalist, you're going to lose.
Yeah.
You've been losing since the 70s.
Right.
You've always lost as an environmentalist when you stand up.
Right.
Now, as a planner or an economist, maybe you'd have a little more impact, and the economists could get totally behind this. They could say, allocating land for parking is a misallocation of resources. Instead, we should be encouraging people to take transit, to park out of town and take shuttles in. We can provide them with means to get into the downtown, and then we can use the land not for parking lots and asphalt, but for shops and ways to generate revenue and for housing.
Right.
Okay. And so why would we misallocate this land, which is precious?
And our resources,
so people can come in once a week and create traffic jams.
And
why would we do that?
What the prognosis is from Kat as the scientist, and he's right, and as sensitive to what's happening in our world with our politicians or our business. Just let's look at it as business. The businesses are saying we're going to put we're going to put a price on carbon. That is coming. So we have to buckle down and do the right thing now as we go ahead, because we don't have a lot of chances to make mistakes again. We are at the end of the runway, as they say. We're in the jaws of destruction. So
and the conversation we should be having is, rather than just blindly going forward, encouraging people to drive, and now we're going to have the SAP Center with its thousands of cars and the Google Village with its tens of thousands of cars, and these people are colliding in intersections, even literally colliding in intersections and having road wars. Okay, instead of promoting that, why don't we just back up from that particular nightmare scenario and rethink this? Okay, and what else could we do instead of all that? And have that conversation. That's just an adult conversation. Right. You're not just blindly going forward like some Pac-Man chasing the little money balls.
And just like and it is very similar to the whole thing with the 49ers, Jed, whatever his name is, putting pressure on the government, the Santa Clara County government, to say let our people into our playing fields, our coliseums, and it turns out that's gone.
I've even said if he wants that. And if his fans want that, They should be allowed to do
Yeah,
that.
but we can't. That the thing is,
And the reason why,
why? Because they're all going to die.
they're going to get sick, and then they'll understand why we don't do things
Yeah, but
like
the
this.
thing is that's where the science and the county and the health departments, you can't just say it doesn't matter that we allow 5,000 people into the SAP center, because that's irresponsible, because it's not
Okay,
fair to all
it
the
might
people
be
that they.
irresponsible, but I'm
they
not
have-
I'm not interested in human welfare. I'm not interested in working with people anymore. And if throwing them in there gets a bunch of them sick, and then no one comes to that stadium anymore because, hey, the last time my family went there, 3 of us came back sick and 1 of us died. Well, then they're done.
Right, and that is the reality.
Then the
of what's
NHL
going
is
forward.
done.
That
They're
is
just
going
done.
forward.
Okay,
The SAP
and
center,
I don't have to worry about it
the
anymore.
SAP center is
Let them go. Let them have their nightmare scenario. Let them die.
Right.
And then we don't have
You
to
know,
worry about
and
this
the other-
anymore
the
because
thing
they'll be
is,
too frightened to go.
The SAP center is an enclosed coliseum. That's the worst. It's the worst. So it's really it's a boat anchor.
It's not. I guess you haven't been here when they're trying to get people in. There's people lined up in huge queues outside trying to get in. They're standing at the crosswalks trying to get across the street. Huge mobs. They're walking in groups from the parking lots
I know there's
like
that
this.
too. That's that too.
They don't even. They could get sick
just getting in
from a coronavirus exposure.
That's fine.
Just getting there.
But being in there is like the worst. It's being in the Coliseum is going to be worse in this enclosed
You're going to be
Coliseum.
surrounded by people that are. It's a cold day. They're coughing.
Right. And this is
coughing
what,
children.
and we're going to build our future based on a Coliseum that is an indoor, killing field. So and then all the other issues that you brought up, the confluence of the Google, and we've really got to, put our thinking caps on, put our, be the hominids, the Homo sapiens, forethought, and just see what it's looking like, and it's looking very bleak. If we allow cars to be,
it's looking very bleak, and since it's looking bleak, it's going to be bleak.
It is going to be bleak
because they're not going to change.
Right.
And you're gonna bash your brains out, hitting the wall with your head, trying to get these people to change.
Yeah. Okay. And you're saying let it go.
Why?
And see what happens.
Why do it?
Right.
Yeah, let it go, and
anyway,
we'll all watch what happens.
So what it was, I appreciate you bringing some thought onto it, the problems of this, and this is what we really shouldn't even be promoting the SAP at all because of the violence behind it, the sports, the sharks, and it's just and then there's the cars, and that's another reason to not support this. And that's thanks for sharing the bleak vision of what it's going to look like, and maybe we can do some forethought and prevent it.
I am not optimistic.
You're not optimistic
at all.
I know. It's very, very.
Yeah, if you want to be optimistic, that's just your personality.
Yeah, my personality.
I got both feet in reality.
All right, good. So anyway, that was just a little talk on, what did you call it? The message. What was it called?
I don't even remember.